Okay, so I just wrote this book, um, Higher School Maths, Mathematician Reminisces the HSC. And the reason I wrote this book was I wanted to see if I sort of thought about, like, I wanted to look back at the things I learned in high school and how had that changed after that I became a mathematician, like a professional mathematician. Okay, but on top of that, it actually addresses a lot of issues. I mean, so if you're, it's meant for Extension 2 students or students who are really interested in maths. I mean, there's a lot of students, unfortunately, don't even do Extension 2 who would have been great at maths. Um, I remember someone did Extension 1 accelerated and then didn't even do Extension 2 in Year 12. They didn't do any maths at all in Year 12, even though they got like 99 in Extension 1. Okay, um, so the point of the book, I guess, educationally, is it's meant to give students who really love maths a way forward beyond high school. Okay, so Extension 2 is really difficult for a lot of students, and unfortunately, the course has been dumbed down even further um, to try to make it more appealing for students. But for a lot of the top students, it's made it more about speed than what maths is really about, and it also makes them not really understand sort of what maths could be like in the future. And so if you just follow sort of the HSC curriculum and you weren't really savvy to sort of what's ahead, you might actually discount yourself in the future quite a lot because the the course doesn't really adequately um, tell you what maths is really about. Okay, and for example, if you were to just do the course and then you were to take like the steps Cambridge maths entry exam, which there's no way that the 4 unit extension 2 syllabus wasn't copied from when it first started because it looks basically identical. Okay, you'd probably fail that exam. Okay, even if you did well in extension 2, and that's kind of weird, right? Because why is it that you're doing the highest level maths and you're doing well at it, and you're failing at these other exams which are meant to be for students at the same level? Um, and I think um, the reason is a lot of the I think a lot of the teachers are not able to actually teach maths at that right level of rigor, even if the curriculum was to have it that way. Okay, so um, so I'll give you an idea of what's in the book. You can see, I mean, I focused. So I like to have a theme. Okay, so the theme behind high school maths in Australia is calculus, and that's a very it used to be a very unique theme, but it's now it's more common around the world to teach people calculus in high school. Okay, um, and so I don't necessarily cover all the topics, but I focus on the calculus topics. Okay, and and part of the achievement of calculus is really defining things like limits and stuff. It isn't calculating derivatives. That's more just sort of the end result of calculus. Okay, so I have a chapter on logical proofs and functions, calculus of functions, and so basically the logic is so proofs is obviously a part of the syllabus, but I put logic first because I think to even qualify to say that you understand or not understand something, you have to actually be good at logic. Okay, a lot of time people say they understand something because their logic isn't good enough to realize they've missed all the actual points of understanding. For younger students, logic still would come first logically, but because younger students find it so boring, logic would have to come like later on in the book. Okay, and then sort of another way to look at logic is sets. Okay, and this is where it gets more object oriented. And then you have the relationship between sets, which are functions. And calculus sort of deals with these basically these functions. Okay, and 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 basically all the functions are organized from the point of view of calculus. So you have the polynomial functions, the trigonometric functions, the exponential and logarithmic functions, and and so they're all explored on their own and from the point of view of calculus. And I think thematically that would serve essentially to replace the current Extension 2 syllabus, which this mostly is. It just gives you the definitions of proofs. It also has a lot of problems, and I think I might leave a few too many things to exercises because when I first wrote this, I was like at the peak of my maths, so like everything was super obvious. Um, but there are actually like explanatory aids. So like if there are QR codes throughout the book that link you to my YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to, and basically it's you can actually even ask questions in the comments. So I'm willing at the moment to make videos to explain things further if you want them. And so in some sense, this book doesn't really need to be updated. Okay, you can just go to the same link and the videos will be put in the playlist. And this book essentially is alive. Okay, and and if you're watching how to write a book, these kind of ideas came to me as I was writing the book. So this is not just a book with like standard text and stuff. It's actually got QR codes to video links, and you essentially have access to the author, which you would never have previously. Okay, and there's lots of exercises too. Um, Essentially, the exercise is just to keep you honest with your understanding, because a lot of people, as I said, think they understand it, they read it, but they don't really have a good check on their rigor in their own heads, and you really need something to hold you accountable. Which all of these things you should have actually been able to develop when you're by the time you're in year 12 anyway. It's just I think a lot of the habits you get into, um, kind of just um, holds you back a little bit longer, right? Um, what else? So yeah, I guess if there's anything else you want to know about the book, you can just put it in the comments, and ask me and stuff like that. But when it comes to a book, I think this is definitely worth it. Because you know it's like this took me what like 1,000 hours to do, and like if you can buy it for like $100 or something, um, like that's pretty good value. That's why books have been so powerful, um, fast, because it really does scale well, and you can get a lot of good value learning for not a very high price, and it also gives you something to follow. Um, but also just keep in mind, like not everyone's really aware of all the stuff that's in the book, so you can't just like assume people like once you understand it, you can't just talk about it to other people like everyone understands it. You have to actually still explain things to them. Alright, this is starting to turn into a bit of a rant, so yeah, if you want me to talk about anything else, alright, so I proved the chain rule, for example. So the chain rule is something you probably use the chain rule for like at least 20 hours of your year 12 existence, if not more. Maybe even 100 hours. You're just doing chain rule for like 100 hours, okay? Um, so it might be nice to know the proof, okay? And most proofs online are actually wrong, so it's kind of crazy. And then people see it once again, they don't have the logical capacity to realize why they're wrong, so then they just believe it, okay? And um, this is why you really need to get good first before you do self-study, or at least you have to have a good idea of what you're in for with self-study. Okay. I mean, reading a book is kind of like self-study, even though you're getting kind of guidance from the author of the book. Um, Obviously, the better the book is, the less of a mistake it is to just blindly trust. But ideally, you still want to kind of figure out what's going on for yourself. Okay. Oh, another thing I should mention about this book is that it covers like a lot of the 2 unit, 3 unit topics. Most people have to cover from 2 unit or 3 unit books, which are at a much lower level because they're meant for 2 unit and 3 unit students. This book covers those topics too, but at a not extension 2 level essentially, but what I think an extension 2 level should be. Um, yeah. So, ideally, you could use it as a textbook, but um, it doesn't cover everything. It might be just good to have. I think sometimes textbook has too much of a responsibility to cater to everyone, and I'm not really interested in catering to people who don't really like maths or like they're just doing maths to get into medicine or something very superficial. Um, I'm really interested in people who you want to use maths to maximize their education, and they really um, have a respect for maths and want to pursue maths further, and will teach their kids maths and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so all right, I'm starting to rant. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments.